Good morning, everybody. Yeah. Lebang and Raya are in the studio in Joburg, and I am at home this morning, but we are doing this, and we're doing it live, and we're doing it for you. Hop on board, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies, tell everyone. We don't mind who. We'll take all comers. That's right. You can also call us on the show this morning. I will put the number up on the screen and you can be a part of that conversation too. It's lots of fun, I assure you. And we've had great quality calls. Someone actually told me yesterday in the messages that we've got the greatest quality callers of any show. So I'm happy to take that. I'll own it. That's what we want. We'll put you on 083-295-5769. Tell us what you're up to early in the morning on a Tuesday. Hello, Lebang. How are you?
Morning. I'm okay. How are you?
Very
Can
good.
You hear me?
Very good.
Oh, great.
Yeah, loud and clear. Perfect.
Yeah, fantastic.
Why, were you worried there was a problem?
Well,
no, you weren't in the office. You were busy. You were running around doing things.
Yeah, I kind of missed you guys. Is that okay to say?
Well, yeah. First of all, before we start missing like Mondays, how was Friday's braai?
Sure, it was so lit. Literally, at some point there was just flames on the actual braai stand. Yo, Gareth, I was laughing my ass off.
I hate to break it to you, Lebang, but you know, for a fire, for a braai, you kind of need that.
Sure, and I'm happy to have a little bit of fire, like some flames, just to keep the meat going, but literal flames, I was not expecting. Look, it was nice, to see the team all chilled. We made some salads, we made potato salad, we made like chakalaka, we made a salsa. Simply made a stunning garlic bread. It was so good.
Don't get ahead of yourself. Now, you told me you would be able to do this whole thing for 100 Rand a head.
That was the plan, yes. And we did. It
sounds like a feast to me. For $100 a head, this is like the best catering in Joburg. Are you kidding?
So generally what we did is we took everybody's 100 Rand contributions and put that just towards the meat. And then in terms of salads and stuff, myself and Maz just said, you know what, from the goodness of our hearts, what's a braai without potato salad? What's a braai without a chakalaka? So, we just scoured our pantries at home and we added. But what was interesting was that when we arrived and we started setting up, suddenly there were questions about like booze. Like, so guys, where's the gin? Where's the punch? And we're like, how? Guys, 100 Rands. Like, are we aware what the economy is like right now? Do you know how expensive things are? But I think eventually everybody just got into the vibes. I don't know what made me believe that Mash is the guy to actually handle the braai. Like, I was just so confident in him. I thought he could do it. Yo, Gareth, it was bad.
Yeah, I mean, this is this is very first of all, it's incredible that you managed to do all of this, but these cheapskates that we work with, they must realize that if you want a really good meal, it's not for free,
Exactly. I think that's the lesson here. That's definitely the lesson. And also, if you want to pick somebody to braai, maybe ask for a CV, see what their previous braaiing experience is looking like. Don't just trust the first guy that puts up his hand.
There are not a lot of people who can really braai properly, and I'm totally with you. And if you're going to do this, and that's why I was not there on Friday. I had no interest in sharing in your shitty braai because I had no idea who was in charge of the braai, and I'm big about quality control. Okay, big.
Yeah.
Plus, I didn't believe for 100 Rand a head I would get decent fare. And I when I saw it on Instagram, I thought, wow, Lebang's really pulled this off. She managed to get some good quality stuff going here for this braai. And
we did.
I kind of, now that I know the true story, flames, not such great.
Everything leading up to the flame.
I think.
I'd love to. And look, I did suggest it. I did say, hey guys, we don't have to go the braai route. Let's just go the air fry route. But the camaraderie that comes with the braai, people being outside, I didn't want to take that away from the team because this was like a very many team building exercise. It's the first one we've done in the house. I just wanted people to relax. So we pulled all of that off. But everything up to the point where the meat hit the braai was when shit went to
Yes.
shit. Everything else was fine. Like, it was great. We're making salads together. We're laughing, cracking jokes. Yo. And then all of a Sunday, it just became fire. And it was a wrap.
Well, we have quite a lot to get into today. Speaking of food, I have to say that there are two people in the news at the moment who are making quite a lot of noise and waves. First one is the mayor of Tshwane. You can see he likes his food. Muruna Makwarela. Now, I saw a little bit of the news yesterday. I don't know who these people are, but Willie Madisha is supposedly still in charge of Cope. Did you know Cope was still a thing? Did you know Cope was still a thing?
I thought it was over for Cope. I thought they couldn't cope. I thought it was a wrap. I didn't know they were still alive and kicking.
I know. It's so embarrassing. So Cope is still around, and this was the guy that they put forward to be the mayor of Tshwane. All right? This guy. This Muruna Makwarela. So last night on the news, there are two guys, a guy called Dennis Bloem and a guy called Willie Madisha, who you might remember from the trade unions. And these two are supposedly they are supposedly the leaders of Cope at the moment. Although could have fooled me, because I mean I wouldn't know them. I mean, Cope is like what? There are 4 people in Cope, and 2 of them are leaders. So that means this guy and one other person is a follower. Anyway, this guy's apparently he was declared insolvent because he couldn't manage his money. Right. So what happens is when you're declared, and listen, a lot of people who are not completely irresponsible idiots, they also can't manage their money because of various things. They've got huge expenses that come up. Someone makes a claim, SARS comes after them, whatever. You get declared insolvent. So when you are declared insolvent, it means that you cannot be a director in a company. You can't be the mayor of a city. You're not given responsibility over money because you've been declared someone who can't manage money, essentially.
You're not qualified.
Yeah, exactly. So this guy apparently goes off now that he's been declared insolvent. And they say, no, you can't be mayor if you're insolvent. So he goes off and he forges a fake letter that he is now no longer insolvent. But it's complete forgery. It's like he's not even trying to hide the ball. He's like, yeah, here's this letter. I found this letter. He brings this letter out. And it turns out he's made up the whole thing. So he's faking it.
So he's proving his insolvency by forging a letter saying that I am able, where he actually isn't.
Yes. He's basically, now he's not only an insolvent person who can't manage money, but he's also a liar and a forger. Anyway, so this just goes back to, you know what, if you'd invited him to do the braai, he probably would have done a fine job because he looks like someone who knows how to run a braai, not a city. So Cope should be embarrassed about this guy. But then there's Nokolo Kivit. Now, Nokolo is she's the minister in the Department of Public Works. Okay. Now, I mean, we will avoid childish comments about Nokolo's facial expression right now, or the fact
let's
that
park that.
he has more chins than a Chinese phone book. And what we will say is that Nokolo over here has lied about her 2 degrees that she says she has. Now, I don't know why anyone would do this, because if you are already a minister and Searll has made you a minister, you don't have to prove anything. Well, it doesn't matter, because you don't have to have a degree to be a minister. It's not in
that is obvious.
Because we have a lot of ministers who have no tertiary education, and that's fine as long as they can do the job, which of course very few of them can do. But Nokolo over here, she said she had 2 degrees from Fort Hare University. 2, not just 1. She had a master's and she had her bachelor in something or another. Well, turns out
what happens? What happens to them now that they've completely botched their their appointments? They've lied. They've used Microsoft Word to forge documents. Like, what is the aftermath? Who is holding them accountable?
So only Makwarela forged his, but she didn't forge anything. She just lied. She just basically said, I have these degrees, but she doesn't.
What are
So
the consequences to being a liar in Parliament?
no, nothing. I mean, she's still there, and Searll has no
Life goes
backbone, so
on.
he's not going to. Yeah, so watch, she'll still be there in 3 months' time, and nothing will happen to her. Now you see, I mean, if she just said, "No, I don't have any degrees," we would have been like, "Well, okay, well, we didn't expect you to have any degrees because you're in Searll's cabinet, but that's fine."
Maybe
But
she
instead,
felt the
why
need
is
to
she?
lie,
Why?
just to make herself look more equipped to do this work. Just to make herself, not even herself feel better, but to boost confidence in her peers and her colleagues. Like, oh, she's definitely the person. Why? She's got 2 degrees from Pretoria. I mean, had she kept quiet, there would have been a problem, right? People would have questioned, like, how did she get in that position without any education, blah, blah, blah. Nothing really would have been done about it, but people would have spoken. So just to make herself better coffee, just add a little fa. Just say, one master's degree, another degree.
Also, I mean, don't these people realize? Like, I think it was a while ago. There was another minister. I think it was Jay Naidu who lied about a doctorate that he had, or something like that. I don't understand these people who lie about these degrees. The degree isn't, if it's a PhD in sociology, it's not a valuable degree. I'm sorry, it's just not useful, and it doesn't count for shit in the eyes of most people. What we want is people who are capable bureaucrats to be running state departments.
Sure.
Nokolo, she looks like she could run the buffet very well, but nothing else.
That thinking, Gareth, that concept of we want people that can actually do the work versus people that are just qualified, that's going to take a while for people to understand. We really just live in a time where many people aren't willing to hold on to that notion and say, you know what, maybe it's not just education. Maybe I just have to know what. A lot of people are still stuck in that. If you don't have the paper, then you don't have the skills. It's as black and white as that. So it's going to take a while.
Listen to this. Yonder says, Gareth, he's not a forger. He couldn't even get that right. If useless was a person, he takes the cake, and clearly we can see he eats it too. Now, I've got to say, like, that's Muruna Makwarela. Now, he's meant to be the mayor of my city, right? The one that charges me about 4,500 Rand a month in rates and taxes, which I get nothing. I don't get electricity provision. I don't get reliable water supply. Sometimes they fetch the rubbish. That's it. The road right outside my gate, right outside, just there, there's a pothole. But this Muruna guy is so busy forging his documents that he's forgotten why he should be or shouldn't be in that position. Like, you know what we should do to solve this problem? I mean, I'm a solutions-oriented guy. You know this, Lebang. We should say to people, if you want to work in government, you get minimum wage. That's all. You will get free transport, you will get free accommodation, but you will get minimum wage. In other words, this job is not going to pay. The kind of people we want to attract to this job are the sort of people who are happy to earn absolutely nothing because it's public service. I wouldn't want to be in government, would you?
Of course not, but I admire your hope in that regard. That's just not going to happen. Again, it goes back to feeling more important and needing to be something you're not. When you have that kind of job, it's also more about getting that special treatment and, not getting load shedding and not being your average South African. They're definitely not going to attract the right people because they've positioned it in the wrong way. They've positioned it as you just get to CEO or CFO by doing absolutely nothing. That's what they've done versus having to put in the work and having to put in the years and really trying to make this country and fix the country. They're not interested in that, sadly.
Viasen corrects me. It was Palo Jordan who was the minister who also lied about a doctorate. Just stop it, guys. Just stop. Our expectations are so low already.
We're
not expecting. All we want is, like, if you can read, if you can read The Cat in the Hat. We're like, Jesus, this is the most talented minister we've had in years.
The bar's so low. This is so sad. Oh, it's too early. Gareth, it's a Tuesday morning. Let's try remain positive. We know our situation. Like people lie. People lie. More so people in powerful positions who are just handed mountains of money and squander it and not give a crap about the guy at the bottom getting the crumbs. This is our reality. The point is, what do we do about it as citizens, our daily lives? Let's just try and prove that, and then we'll leave it at that. Otherwise, we're going to sit here for hours complaining.
I think we start off by just slashing their salaries. You just make it really, really expensive to be a minister. In other words, it almost costs you more than you get paid, because these guys get paid a lot of money, right? And deputy presidents, they get paid a lot of money. Who knows what they do? You've got directors general, deputy directors general, deputy ministers. I mean, who knows what a deputy minister does? You only need one head of policy or government in a department. Anyway,
Paul Mashatile got married this weekend, or he took out lobola.
Oh,
yeah. So everybody was like upset about that because his wife passed during COVID. She had some issues during COVID and she passed on. And the person that he's remarrying to, her husband was also in parliament and he also passed on during COVID. So I guess like they were like supporting each other, like, oh, our partners passed on, and now they're getting married, and everybody's just kind of focusing on that. Like, oh, how could he? Oh, he's been in the cut this whole time, waiting, blah, blah, blah.
Do you have a problem with that? I think it's fine. I mean, you probably, where else are you going to meet someone if you pull Mashatile? You're going to meet them in politics.
Exactly. Right? Look, if anything, like my mom was really good friends with his ex-wife, and she was such an amazing lady. Manzi Mashatile was so dope, Gareth. She was like, like a breath of fresh air. She'd never like jumpisa that she's the wife of Paul Mashatile. She was just always very humble and very like honest and pure. And she would always like just give. She was just like a ball of energy. So that's like from a personal take, it's just like, okay, cool. Like, that's the standard. He was with a woman like that for so long that one can only hope that, he's chosen somebody that's got like a similar vibe. But as far as do I really care and blah, 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 not really. Just do your job, bro.
This is his business. And I have no problem with him getting remarried. And I unlike you, I didn't know his former wife. I don't know his current wife. And what do these, who are these people who are complaining about this like it's wrong? Do they want him to be miserable? And do they want him to live on his own forever? And I mean, what would you like Paul Mashatile to do, ladies and gentlemen of Twitter?
Give us solutions. Tell us, people, what would you like Paul to do? It's just that everybody's got an opinion on everything. Like the minute we know even a little bit of information regarding someone's personal life, we then just feel like we can provide essays and point out what they should have done, point out what they would have done. We live in a society of like a lot of very boring, flat individuals who sit and point out, things about other people's lives, people who are actually doing something with their lives. They'll sit and scrutinize your life and say, oh, you only have 20,000 followers. If you had 20,001 followers, maybe you'd be doing something. And they're saying this from their 5-follower account. So, yeah.
I don't really give a damn who Paul Mashatile is married to or who I don't know half these politicians' wives. It makes no difference to me, and it shouldn't. I mean, we can attack them. We can always attack them for what they do, their job that they're supposed to do, if they don't do it properly. But I don't believe that it's ever really fair to say, well, they should be in love with this person or they should be in love with that person or whatever. Look, if they can't conduct themselves properly, if their personal life is a disgrace and a mess, and they're fathering children and abandoning them, or they don't take responsibility for their lives, or they abuse their wife or their husband, obviously then it's a problem, because would you trust someone like that? Would you trust someone like that in your own home? Obviously not.
Of course not.
So you wouldn't trust them to run the country. But other than that, in terms of their personal feelings towards each other, whose business is that except theirs, really? Exactly. Let it be done. Anyway, congratulations, Paul Mashatile. But
yes, with that being said,
interesting.
Congratulations.
He waited for the deputy president's salary to come along before he could afford the lobola. So it's obviously quite a lot of money. Let's just say that. Anyway, there's so much to get into today. We've got news headlines. We've got Jonti Searll popping around a little bit later on. Of course, Jonti is our cliff-centric sexologist, and he's the man who, for a long time, did the sex show on Cliff Central. So if you've got some questions for him, you are welcome to call in with those or to send us a message. And speaking of calling in, let's get those phone calls going. 083-295-5769. We'll put you on. You could tell us what's going on, what you want to talk about this morning. We'd love to hear from you. So lots of things to talk about there. Also, I want to throw this in quickly because we are planning the next one and we want to hear from you. So this is our next Uncancelled. And Retabile Cliff Central Biz said 15% of podcast listeners say they would pay between $10 and $25 to attend a live recorded event. And that's according to Morning Consult. So when Retabile put this up, I thought, oh, that's interesting, because we want to start doing live events and we'd love to meet our audience and have them along. And we need to obviously provide some snacks and some drinks and things. So we've got to charge money. If we charged $100 a person, which is kind of Lebang's, that's her line for the braai, right? So if we charged $100 a person, would you come to our next Uncancelled? And obviously we're going to try to find the best guests possible. We can try and make it really, really cool and interesting, but we want to hear from you. So let us know about that. Send us an email to contact@cliffcentral.com or drop us a comment, and we would love to hear if you'd be prepared to pay that $100 to come along. And maybe Ryan can put a poll up for us while we're doing this.
100. It's $100. I'll say this again, because I said this for the Braai as well, which is, what are you getting? The return on that $100 in this case is like entertainment right off the bat, and it's just so much value, and it's adult conversations. This is the kind of platform where we're saying all the things that everybody's thinking, but people are too scared to say out loud. This is the kind of space where we're not too scared to say it. We're gonna say it, and you leave that room changed. I mean, you leave there having learned something so real. So, I mean, I'd pay $100, Gareth. I'd pay two. I'd pay $200 actually. Yep.
Well, we'll put up some options. We'll say, no, I would not come to any paid event. I am a cheapskate. Or no, I would not come. B, we'll say $100 is fine. C, I would pay double that. Let's see what people would be prepared to do. I mean, it would be interesting. Yeah. And then we obviously can meet each other as well, because there are a lot of people in the comments that we've never met before. Carl says, what's the food situation? Is it good, or is it shitty sausage rolls and tomatoes?
Who doesn't love a sausage roll and tomatoes? Come on, Carl. Come on.
Viasen is pointing out quite rightly that Lebang offers more for the braai than what our government offers the citizens. That's true.
Lebang for president. Sign me up.
There we go. Ancient Ether says that's more expensive than going to Ster-Kinekor. But what shit movie are you going to watch at Ster-Kinekor?
Also, that's a straight up lie. Movies these days are not $100. They are not. They're way more for the ticket and the popcorn and the slashy, all of that together that you buy on the website before. It comes up to 200 and something. It's gak expensive.
There we go. Lies. Stop with the lies. I bet you that was either the former mayor or the minister who were lying there in the comments. They were
hiding behind an account.
All right. Well, Tracy says $100 is nothing. If you pay for something, you add value for it. If the seat is for free, come podcast recording time, and you're feeling a little lazy after a long day, chances are you won't go. Well, that's another thing is people, and this is true for me anyway. It may be true for you as well. But unless I've paid a deposit for something, provided it's like some public access event, it's not like a friend of mine's wedding or whatever, I can still change my mind, right? Yeah. I'm still allowed to change my mind.
Of course.
Because you've paid. So, in other words, it's not like you got given a free seat and you didn't pitch. That's different.
Which is worse? Getting invited and you've gotten a free seat and you don't pitch, or paying but then still not pitching? Because that also happens too. Some people are like, oh yeah, I've bought the ticket in advance, but now I'm suddenly so lazy. Well,
I think it's fine if you've paid. No, if you've paid for it, then I think it's okay for you to drop out, because then they can always allocate that seat to someone else for free because you've already paid for it.
Sure.
So, for the event organizer, I don't think it matters as much. But if you've paid, that's sharp because they can cover their costs, right? If you don't pitch and they've catered for 100, let's say catered. And by the way, we're looking at a small audience of like 40, maybe 50 people. So we're not
Yeah.
going to make this a huge event, and that means we're not profiteering. I mean, if it's 40
No.
people at $100, that's what, $4,000. So it's barely going to cover the cost of the food and drink. But the fact is, you got to do that, right? I mean, we're not going to. Anyway, we want to hear from you. So the poll is up. It says the following. You can go and check it out. No, I would not come. I would absolutely come for $100, or I would pay double that. Let's go and see. Go and cast your vote in the poll. It's on the YouTubes, and you can tell us what you think. All right, so let's talk, Lebang, about your first good deed on the Parents Association Council. Listen to this. This is Lebang's chance to boast.
I'm so proud of myself, Gareth. Like, I was having such a crappy day yesterday, and then I just got this message that literally made me light up. So I've only been on the PAC for maybe 2 months. I got there, and then I joined the social committee. We do all the events, sort of like the fundraising committee, but just like the event side. Oh, I'm loving this. Cool. So one of the first things that I suggested to the schools, so the purpose of the Parents Association Committee is just to make suggestions like, hey, school, why don't you try this? Or why don't you try that? So I suggested that we do like a cashless school type energy. So they have a tuck shop system there, but it's very flaky. Like Monday to Friday, hot dogs are 10 Rand. Next week, hot dogs are 20 Rand. It's very government, just up and down. You don't know what's going on. So I suggested that we do a whole cashless experience where the kids won't need to come with hard cash to school. There's an app that the school uses where the parents can sort of select meals, and then the kids go and just collect their food. So there's no actual cash exchange. The prices are structured. They can account for stock better, all of that stuff. So I suggested this a month ago, and it kind of fell on deaf ears. They were like, oh, get in line. I left it. Then we had a meeting last week, and I just put my foot down. I was like, guys, I really think having a cashless tuck shop is the future. Let's do this. And yesterday I got a message. Dear parent, please note that from the blah, blah, blah of March, the school will now be cashless. The tuck shop, this, that. I said that. I was like, oh my God, I did that. Oh, that was all me. I felt so good. I was like, this is why I do what I do. I do this to make people's lives right. Oh, I felt so good.
That is very cool. Also, I think
it's
that,
pretty cool.
for the kids to be carrying cash around is probably not such a good idea.
Right?
I mean,
it's a bit archaic.
There's a lot of reasons. But also, I mean, if they've got cash, are they going to spend it on the tuck shop? You never know. There could be other things spending it on. Money could be stolen from them by some bully. We were talking about this on the show yesterday. Also, kids lose cash. So this way, they don't have to lose money. Because, I mean, I remember I used to I had 10 Rand in my pocket. Now it's gone.
No, it's gone.
An idiot.
Exactly.
You lose things. So if it's on your phone, which I assume that's how it'll work, then that makes a lot of sense. I like that.
It does. I think it's very clever. I also remember being a kid just losing money all the time and very dizzy. Hey, I'd have 5 Rand at one point and then boom, it's gone. Or whatever the case. So I think this is just a nice way for the real things to happen. Now you can actually decide what your child eats. You can pick salads versus burgers and hot dogs, and sort of pay for it right on the spot. You can order in advance. It's pretty much like a restaurant. And also some of the older kids who probably have this app on their phones can buy themselves food, via the phone. I just think it'll just make life so much easier for them. So I'm excited.
I like that you as the parent can have some say in what your kid's gonna have for lunch instead of just letting them buy sweets. Because they would do that. I know I would.
They don't know any better. No, Gareth, I was guilty of taking 20 Rand and buying just a tub of stock sweets. I didn't buy any pies. I didn't buy any sandwich. I just go, can I please have all those stock sweets? Take my 20 Rand. And I'd walk around giving every kid in school stock sweets just because I had this huge tub. That was my lunch every Friday.
Don't you also think that kids in the next 5 to 10 years are going to stop using cash at school anyway for everything? So they may as well learn early. The real world is, I mean, I filled up with petrol yesterday, used my phone. I paid for parking yesterday, used my phone. I went for a haircut yesterday, used my phone. I use my phone to pay for everything. I don't carry cash around with me. And it's not a good idea. I mean, as much as someone made the comment in here that my crazy financial advisor, I think they're talking about
oh yes, what's his name?
Jim.
Jim, yes, with the caps.
Yeah. So I think they're talking about him. So he says, you got to have feel that money in your hand. And when you hand it over, then it's gone. And it's like a real world thing. I get that. But I also don't know. I don't know that it comes off your account. You still feel that it's not there anymore. I mean, you'd have to be, you would have to be completely disconnected from reality to realize that you're spending money. I know when I'm spending money on here. I mean, when I make payments for things, I get the notifications. It's just as real as empty wallet, it's just as real. So I don't know if I believe that. And
but
also,
there's a time and space for that.
Why do you want to carry cash around in South Africa? We know we've got crime problems. We've got a lot of dodgy people around. You get these cash in transit heists. So, and people steal money from each other. I remember someone telling me once, someone who worked for me, that she had to catch 2 taxis to get home, and that she had to hide her money in the most creative ways because there was always going to be someone who was going to try and steal it from her. Hey, a friend of mine got out of an Uber the other night. Listen to this. He got out of an Uber the other night, and some stranger comes up and hugs him, like out of the blue. Next thing, his phone is gone.
Haibo.
So he gets out of the Uber, and this person he doesn't know at all comes up to him, hugs him, and he doesn't even realize, but in his front pocket, his phone is gone. So it's obviously a technique
in Joburg CBD. Because this is sounding very Joburg CBD-ish.
This was in like on just off William Nicol somewhere. You listen. There's some very talented pickpockets, and if you've got cash on you, it makes you a potential victim of crime. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have cash because bad people could do things, but it's often a better way of dealing with things. Of course, he had his phone stolen, which is the way he would have paid for things. So that's put him in the same position anyway. And maybe you'd rather lose some money than a phone. But I mean, in this case, you've got to be super, super smart. You've got to watch what's going on around you. You cannot be drunken, disorderly, and stupid. You got to know what's happening.
But Gareth, if you get out of an Uber and somebody just comes through and like gives you a hug, obviously there's that initial shock of like, sorry, do I know you? But like the first thing you do is like, obviously like start checking yourself because this is just a weird situation that you're in.
I want to point out, this is why I'm not a hugger. And when people say, you're a very cold person. You don't seem to be so friendly. I'm like, yeah, well, I don't want to be hugging people, especially people I don't know.
You're going to steal my phone, you strangers, all of you. No, that's odd, man. I'm sorry to your friend, but that is so wild. I'd be so mad if like I'm one of those make the world a better place, free hugs here, blah, blah, blah type of people. And my phone gets jacked.
Well, I mean, Fundo points out something really helpful. There is a time and a place for cash, and that is when the JMPD pulls over. That's an excellent point.
Well, I beg to differ, Mfundo. Do you know that e-wallets and other such things are now accepted? I may or may not know, but I cannot confirm or deny. But these days, they'll take what they can get. Streets is wild.
Listen, they do e-wallet. The other one is they'll actually give you their account details, and you can do a proper internet bank payment straight away. And
you can geo-pay them right there, and then they'll open up their app. They'll open up their FNB app, and they'll literally watch you do it. They are getting so clever. Cannot confirm, not deny.
I saw a lady on the side of the road selling flowers the other day in buckets. And she had a coca, little machine. Yeah. And she was using that. So you see, I mean, like this is the way of the future. Let your kids learn early. Lebang, congratulations. You have brought in a cashless system at your kids' school. This is to be commended. Forward thinking. Love it. I love it.
Thank you. I'm excited to see what else we can do. Viva.
Funda says, funny story. My friend did e-wallet and rushed to withdraw the funds first. That's cool.
That's clever. That is clever.
Yes, clever.
Before they withdraw, you say reverse. I love it.
All right. My cousin's phone was stolen, says Andy. They went on a shopping spree, and Absa won't give her money back because it was purchased from her phone.
Damn. That happens.
That's pretty damn horrible. Mash Mashinini says, best to do cash with the EMPD unless it's other options. They usually reach for the moon and ask for way more. So have that 200 and you know that that's your max. That's also a good point. See, this is the stuff that South Africans need to know, Lebang. We don't need to sit and talk about, policy decisions and ministers' qualifications. We need to know, is it best to bribe the police with your phone
cash
or with
cash?
And if it's going to be your phone, should it be e-wallet or geo payments? See, this is useful information that Mash is sharing with us here. This is good.
It's sounding like Mash is putting this in his budget. Like every month, just put aside 200 Rand cash if or when you're in that situation. This is the life of a standard South African. These are our worries. We are budgeting chocho.
Right. Nicholas says we're an innovative lot. Yes, we are, and we are very proud of that. I know that if there's anyone who's listening to us who lives in countries that they don't do things like this, like Canada or Australia, I know that they're going, oh, this is terrible. But in South Africa, this is how you get things done. You don't have to like it. You don't have to live here, but this is how we operate. Sorry,
it is
what we do. And we're not going to be able to change it. So we're going to make it work for us. Ancient Ether says e-wallet saves a lot of people, it seems. E-wallet saved me from a 4,000 Rand parking ticket at the airport this weekend. Ended up just e-walleting 500 Rand to the security guy to get me a new ticket. I like it. Good.
I love this country.
Very good. Nice.
Just e-wallet. I love that. Ooh.
Now I know there are people who also get upset about this stuff because they go, oh well, if you partake in any kind of corruption or fraud or crookery
part of
or
the
problem, you're part of the problem. But let me tell you something. How is this guy with his 4,000 Rand parking who comes up with a plan to pay 500 to the security guard? How is he such a bad person in a country where the people who stole hundreds of millions, if not billions, and are living happily in Dubai right now, no one's chasing them down. None of them have been locked up. There's not a single person in the Zondo Commission's list that has been put in jail. Not one. Now, how is that person a problem? Are you really going to give him hell for the 4,000 Rand? I mean, not all crimes are equal. And you can't make a blanket statement. Like, Lebang, if you could get something you really need done, like let's say you needed one of your kids' birth certificates expedited, pronto, because maybe you have to travel somewhere. And a little bit of money can make things move a little bit faster.
I'll find a guy.
But this is the point, right? Obviously, you're participating in something which is, it's not exactly kosher, but you need to have it done. Now, what's the difference between that and living in a first world country where you are best friends with the magistrate, or your aunt knew the person who's the president, or because these things happen in those countries too. Surely that's not worse or better than the guy who's paying 500 Rand instead of 4,000 Rand for parking. I don't know. Anyway,
like in terms of the list of problems, I feel like that guy at the bottom who doesn't have that 4,000 and can just sort of get away with it by paying the security guard 500 is way, way worse off. He's not the guy you should be focusing on. The guy you should be focusing on is up here. The guy in charge, the leaders who are doing way more, are freaking stealing millions more. And what they do has a ripple effect right down to you, my friend. So this poor guy at the airport, just he's not the guy. Go to the top. It starts at the top and it trickles all the way down.
Right. Let's take a look at some news headlines. We want to know what's happening in the world around us. Now, I don't know if you've seen, but there are a whole lot of striking union members at the moment in NEHAWU, which is the health workers union. The police union are on strike at the moment. The really sad thing about the health workers union strike is that people have died. There was a child on the news last night that I saw who was pulled out of an ambulance. And yeah. As part of the protest, this poor child was who was sick, who was on his way to hospital, was pulled out of the ambulance. There was a woman who died because the nurses were so busy striking outside that no one was there to care for her. And she went critical. And these things happen. And let me tell you, this is really gross. When you become a doctor or a nurse, you have to put the lives of some of your patients, all your patients, ahead of your salary. Now, I'm by no means saying that doctors and nurses should work for free. And I know it's a tough job, and we need our doctors and our nurses, and we need them to be paid properly. But to behave like this, and I saw that the Minister of Health, Joe Pahla, has said they're exploring their legal options because they're going to go after these people who are illegally striking. And there are legal strikes and there are illegal strikes. So we have to see what happens. And of course, there are essential workers. These are people who, when we need them at work, there's no two ways about it. They need to be at work, right? So police, nurses, doctors, teachers, it's a bit of a gray area. Obviously, some teachers are essential and some are not. But the South African Policing Union has vowed not to surrender until its salary demands are met. The union said in its notice to members that it would strike on the 17th of March and would continue then. SAPU wishes to inform our members that a notice to strike was served to the Public Service and Administration Department. Members are encouraged to join the picket line. On Monday, the Labour Appeal Court interdicted any industrial action by NAHAU, its members and employees. The order is applicable with immediate effect, which means that if they strike now, that's illegal. They do not have a legal strike that they're participating in. So they can be arrested, they could be fired, all of that stuff.
But Gareth, can you, for it to get that bad, can you imagine what kind of conditions these nurses and doctors are working in and what they are exposed to and the level of corruption that they are exposed to for it to get that bad where it's like, you know what, fuck, I don't give a fuck about this anymore. Someone can die right in front of me. I'm going to proceed. And in this, it must have been so shitty. And I'm not excusing their behavior in any way. What they're doing is wrong, yes. But can you imagine what limit they were pushed to for it to get this bad?
Well, this is where the government department in question needs to be called to order, because 100%. They should have people. I mean, what the hell's the point of a department of health or a department of police if you don't have someone in there looking after your needs of your workers and starting to pick up on these things before it gets to strike level?
Exactly.
Surely there's somebody.
Before it gets to strike level, they've tried.
Surely there's somebody there who goes, I sense there's a bit of trouble brewing here. We better sort this out. Let's meet with the leaders of the union, find out what they need, try to make their working conditions better or whatever. But these departments are just defunct. They do not work properly.
Yeah, 100%.
Because again, we've got a bunch of people in government who don't know what they're doing. They're just hopelessly out of their depth. All right. This is interesting. Maybe to some people, I mean, I find it moderately interesting, but apparently Bongani Baloyi said Action SA's leader Herman Mashaba told him that their relationship had broken down and that he no longer trusted him at a meeting last week. If anyone cares about the internal workings of Action SA, you're in for some luck. Because former Action SA Gauteng provincial chairperson Bongani Baloyi said he was in the dark as to what exactly the irreconcilable differences were between him and Herman Mashaba. He announced his resignation from the party at a press briefing on Monday. He said he tendered his resignation at the meeting in the party's leadership on Monday. He comes on the back of reports of tensions between him and Herman Mashaba, and Action SA last week pointing to irreconcilable differences. I mean, it sounds like a marriage that's fallen apart.
Yeah, this is like beef.
Again, when we spoke about the Cope mayor of Tshwane just now, and the fact that Willie Madisha and this other Bloom guy didn't know what was going on, you've got to ask yourself, with these smaller parties, are they just havens for the egos of men who've got too big for their boots. Because it seems to me that it doesn't have anything to do with their voters. This doesn't have anything to do with running a party properly or a province properly or a municipality properly. It has everything to do with ego and with people chasing their own personal ambitions ahead of everything else. So whether it's
sounding flat, it's very flat. It's very
whether it's Herman Mashaba, whether it's Willie Madisha, or whether it's the guy from Pretoria. I mean, get your act together. You guys are so amateurish. Like, you've got one job: to keep the party together, to make sure you deliver. That's it. Deliver. Nobody gives a shit about your personal ego. Least of all, you. These smaller parties are just embarrassing, and we're going to have to deal with a lot of them as we go forward into coalition governments. Just get ready. This is our new pain. Just like the ANC's been our pain in the ass for the last 20 years, you're about to meet a whole lot of other people who could be your pain in the ass.
Mini ANCs, a bunch of mini, less experienced ANCs. This is our future.
Right. All right. So let's take a look at some other stuff. Hopefully less to do with politicians. Oh, here's an interesting story. So Steve Hoffman has agreed to pay 100,000 rand fine over supposed LGBTQIA plus hate speech. Here's what happened.
Hey.
He triggered outrage on social media when he criticized Disney's plan to produce films with LGBTQIA plus community representation, saying the company was trying to teach children bestiality and that the plus sign could be inclusive of relationships with animals.
Steve.
Steve. The SA Human Rights Commission and OUT, which is a registered NPO that works to ensure the health, well-being, and human rights of that community, because I can't keep saying LGBTQIA+, because it's exhausting, dragged Hoffman to court over his remarks on social media. In an April 2022 video on Facebook, he told his followers that the acronym included those who engaged in bestiality and that the community was in support of grooming children. In the settlement, he's agreed to publish an apology on all his social media platforms. He acknowledged his statements were hurtful and said he regretted them. Here's his exact comment. During the past 11 months, a lot was said and equality court proceedings followed about a video I posted on my Facebook profile in which I, amongst other things, criticized a policy decision by the international media company Walt Disney Incorporated for the latter's decision to attribute sexual identities to their movie characters. All of which, I mean, that's true, right? I made a comment about the LGBTQ plus community that caused a lot of upset in many circles. I acknowledged the comments that led to the equality court. This is a long tweet. I'm glad that he got more characters because otherwise it'd be a bit fucked. He said, I regret the hurt and offense caused. My attorney informed me that the complaint laid by the South African Human Rights Commission and OUT was being accordingly settled, and our settlement will be made in order in the course of the next week. All right, so 100,000. I'm sure he's got lots of money lying around if he can just pay 100,000 for saying something.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of this? Any comments?
Look, there's certain opinions that I think can just be left in the drafts. You don't have to send everything. Like it's not worth 100,000 is the point. If you feel that way, you can feel that way. You're not always going to please everyone. I get that. Some people will believe that, freedom of speech, say what you want to say. But 100,000, some things can be left in the drafts, bro.
Yeah. You also, I don't know how you make the leap to bestiality. Listen, I don't understand. I've mentioned
LGBTQ does not stand for bestiality.
I'm pretty sure it's for the bisexuals, but what do I know? Listen, I've got my problems with the idea of this being a community because, as I've said before, the L's, the G's, the B's, the T's, the Q's, the I's, the A's, they have nothing to do with each other. They are not a community, and they're basically just a whole bunch of people of sexual or gender identities who've decided they need to get together because unity is better than, a whole bunch of individuals trying to fight this on their own, which I get. But Steve, to jump to bestiality, I mean, bestiality is illegal. All right, it's an illegal activity. If you are caught doing that, and this stuff has come up in the news before, and we've laughed about it. It's not funny. It's obviously awful for the disturbed psychological monsters that would do this to animals, but it's also horrible for the animals, and it is illegal in South Africa. So this kind of thing should be opposed by everyone. And to complain, I mean, what you're really saying is that the most upright and decent member of the LGBTQIA brackets, miss brackets community, that person is also into having sex with animals is just like, that's wrong. So
it's kind of, I don't think he knew what he was talking about, Gareth. Like with you, I can appreciate that is your opinion on the said community, but it almost feels like Steve Hoffman just didn't know exactly what he was talking about, and he kind of just jumped the gun. And because he's Steve Hoffman, who's just spoken out of his ass so many times and has gotten away with it, he figured that he'd just continue to get away with just speaking and not doing research and not actually finding out what it. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to just Google LGBTQ plus minus to the power of 4, whatever it is, but find out what it is. He just kind of, got ahead of himself, and now it's 100 hour. Can never be me.
Well, until we actually are faced with the reality of someone who is into bestiality starting to try and join that community, I don't think it's fair to lump them in with the rest of the alphabet people. Anyway, I mean, it's an interesting story nonetheless. And DK says so much for free speech. Well, free speech doesn't give you the right to just without any blame or without any pain say whatever you want the whole time. There is obviously, it also doesn't give anyone else the right to, the minute they're hurt, accuse you of hate speech, because that's not true.
Yes, correct.
But I think it's important to know that there are consequences to speech. Just like, you're allowed to say a lot of things, but if you say certain things and you are found to be in breach of either the law or the very, very narrow definition of hate speech, which seems to be broadening out all the time by people who just want to stop other people saying things, I do think there is a line. And if you cross the line, you've got to be prepared to hand out some cash, like Steve is doing now. I mean, he doesn't have to say that he is withdrawing all his all he did was acknowledge that it's hurtful, right? He didn't say, I don't believe this anymore. You can't change his mind. He's still entitled to a wrong opinion if he has an opinion and he thinks it's right and you think it's wrong. But you can, if you're the Human Rights Commission, go to the Equality Court and get him fined.
Yeah.
So they did. Let's see what happens. All right. We've got our poll. Let's just quickly go to the poll and wrap up the results of the poll, because people have had their say, Lebang, and here they are.
Okay.
Would you pay $100 to attend the next Cliff Central uncancelled event? So 13% say no, I would not come. Well, thank you, 13%. 57% said I would definitely come for $100, cheapskates, and then 30% said they'd pay double that. But I think that's, Lebang, you did this with a bribe for $100, so let's see.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
That's fair.
Right.
That's fair.
Brilliant.
Good.
Awesome.
So it's happening.
Join us.
Boom.
We'll let you know. We'll let you know as soon as it kicks off. All right. We want to get you there. If Steve had said the sky was blue, it would cause outrage, says Sweet Pea. Well, he said a lot more than the sky is blue. So I do hear you. Like Sweet Pea, Lebang and I probably both agree on this. There are people who just get upset about everything on social media. But there are also people who are constantly saying things to provoke a reaction. And sometimes they get the reaction. It's not the reaction they want.
It costs them 100,000 rands, that reaction.
By the way, I don't think that 100,000 rand is a lot for Steve. I mean, he charges quite a lot for his concerts, and he does them all over the country. So I don't think it's going to hurt his bottom line. No. So I'm sure he's okay with that. Good morning, Team Cliff Central. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Still trying to fall asleep, says Valerie. Thanks for keeping me company. Face red, heart shape, head, hand pink waving. Okay, I think those are emojis, but they didn't
Those
come
are
out so
probably
well.
emojis.
Valerie, you need to fall asleep. I don't know. Maybe Valerie's in a different time zone, but it's morning here. So if you're falling asleep at 7 o'clock, Valerie, we need to check you out.
Tricky nyana.
Yes, it's
Nicholas is asking if
about
he can e-wallet the $200, for the show, the live show. I mean, we take all payments of all kinds here at Cliff Central.
we're just like JMPD.
Yeah, look at us.
What's the
Bribe you.
All right. So when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about two things that are stupid that are going on in the world. The first one being the Silicon Valley Bank and some of the reasons that they may have canceled, may have been, they may have collapsed, because obviously what we know there is that it basically boils down to a whole lot of people withdrawing money from the Silicon Valley Bank and them not having enough money to disperse. In other words, they've taken that money and put it in other places, and they've collapsed quite dramatically. And a lot of people are asking why, and we may have some reasons why, if you look at what they actually say about themselves. So these are not things that we can infer from others. These are things that we can infer from them based on their last report, which they put out publicly. And we'll see if we can troll through that and make any sense of it, because the last thing we need in this world is more banks collapsing and people's money going to shit. Remember, it happened with VBS? And we know that VBS was a great embarrassment to members of the EFF who were shareholders. And we also know that VBS ended up costing a lot of old grannies who'd put their pensions in there, all of their life savings. A lot of people in South Africa who could ill afford to lose a single cent. And I mean, no one wants to lose a cent. These are especially poor people who, they lost everything in VBS when that collapsed. So let's see if SVB teaches us anything. It's almost VBS, but it's the other way around. It's SVB, VBS. But basically, those are not three great letters to put with each other if you're a financial institution
for your business.
So if you're thinking of starting a bank called BVS, not a good idea.
Nah.
That's all we're going to say. Future doesn't look so bright for you. The other thing I want to talk about is apparently Miss France is not allowed to choose the winner of Miss France, the beauty queen competition, based on her appearance. Yeah.
Is it about her personality?
I don't know, but Miss France is not about her look. We'll find out in the next hour. There's lots to talk about. Stick around for that and a whole lot more. CliffCentral.com, Tuesday morning. All right. It is Tuesday morning, cliffcentral.com. Lebang and I are here to keep you company. A little bit later on, Jonti Searll will be with us. We'll talk about sex, baby. We'll talk about
Let's
you.
talk about you and me. We'll talk about all the good things and the bad things. Look at us exposing our ages.
Yeah. Old school.
Yep.
So, let's just get straight into this because this is just insane. You know, this world we live in, I sometimes think, did I go to sleep last night and wake up on a different planet? This is the headline from the Telegraph this morning. Miss France beauty pageant sued for selecting contestants based on their appearance. Now,
Okay.
it gives me a fucking headache, but let's try anyway, all right? So, it's a beauty pageant. Do we know what a beauty pageant is?
Operative word being beauty.
Beauty, right. So, you select people based on the appearance, mostly of their face, but also of their bodies. Yes. It is
Beauty.
quite a big deal in a beauty pageant for you to be beautiful. It's kind of the barrier to entry. And that has been the case for all of the history of these stupid beauty pageants. Now, do I give a shit about a beauty pageant? Probably not. I think I stopped watching those when I turned like 10 because there was better TV in South Africa after that. Everything was better TV than that in South Africa after that. Beauty queens have a place, I'm sure, that ribbons need to be cut. You know,
Sure.
children's hospitals need to be visited. Cars need to be launched with women wearing sashes around them. I don't know what the purpose is, but I'm sure there's a purpose for beauty queens. I'm sure there are lots of things that they do that make society better.
World peace.
Yes, and even if it's just because they look nice, that's also okay, right? I mean, you know, for some people, looking nice is the only contribution they make to the world.
Of course. And if that's your vibe, go for it.
We shouldn't take that away from them, right?
Let pretty people do their thing.
Let them have their beauty anyway. So the Miss France pageant, has been sued for selecting contestants based on their appearance. So what's the bet that Miss France is going to be less interesting to the few people who are still watching beauty pageants? They will drop off as well. And eventually Miss France will not be a thing. And that's fine. I mean, so we miss out on knowing who the prettiest girl in France is. I'm sure we'll manage just fine after that.
So these 3 women who have joined forces with the feminist group to file a legal complaint over discrimination and breach of... What is stopping them from creating their own pageant, which is not about beauty? What is stopping them from saying Miss France personality and starting from scratch with this award, blah, 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 stage, blah, blah, blah?
Because what happens in all of these places, in all of these awards ceremonies, these institutions, these competitions, is that the people who aren't winning get upset about not winning, so they come in and they ruin the competition. That's what they do. So then the award or the title is worth shit anyway, because now the whole reason it was established, in this case because of appearance, beauty, is gone. It's like the minute the Oscars became political, everybody stopped watching. I didn't watch the Oscars. Did you?
Nope. Not a chance.
Do you care? You care what movies?
Not a chance. All I saw was that, like, who's the guy that did the whale? Brendan Fraser. I saw that he won. I was like, cool story, bro. And I kept it moving. It's what we speak about often, Gareth, is that these, you know, old systemy, organizationally events are still happening, and they are so outdated, so unimportant, that they're struggling to remain relevant. In the same way that for us, beauty pageants are exactly that. It doesn't fucking matter, you know. But
Okay,
there's people out there that still care about stuff.
But the Oscars used to be a thing. It was a prestigious thing. They're still pretending it's prestigious, but it isn't. You know, what's happened is now Brendan Fraser must get this award. I haven't seen The Whale. I'm sure he's terrific in it. Brendan Fraser doesn't strike me as being, I'm sure he's a great actor. It's about this. Well, it's about this fat gay guy who his daughter. He's embarrassed about being fat, and it's a whole thing about like fat acceptance. That's what it is, right?
I mean, look, it's also a screenplay. So, like it was a stage, like a scripted type. It's a drama. It's a play that was done on stage, and then they converted it into a movie. So when you actually see these little nuances of the storyline and how very clearly this is maybe not something that should be cinematically viewed, then you can start to appreciate that, oh, okay, I get what they're trying to say. But yes, it's a story about a fat guy who's gay, who's sort of an absent father, who's ashamed, can't walk, can't do this, can't do that, and then falls to his death. He did very well in that role, though. Storyline wise, hey man, who am I? He won an Oscar.
Right. All right. Well, nice. But I promise you, he won most of the winning in this Oscar category was due to him being someone who's body positive in the role that he played. That it's gay accepting. It's all of these things that Hollywood is obsessed with, that we have to keep on making a political fuss about certain groups. And this is all that Hollywood has been doing for the last 15 years. And people are just sick of it. So where the Oscar used to be for the greatest directors, the best movies, the best acting, now it's all political. So it's lost its value. It's no longer valuable. Miss France has lost its value because it's no longer about the most beautiful girl in France, which is actually a thing. Like, it would be quite something to be the most beautiful girl in France. I think a lot of girls, even ones who have other things going on in their lives, who are successful in business, who are moms, who are doing a bunch of things with their life, they'd love to be called the most beautiful woman in France. It's something people might have wanted once. But now, when people are suing because it can't be about appearance anymore, it's worth shit. So you can have your Miss France, because now it's worthless. You can have the Oscars because now they're worthless. If you take away the reason for something to be good, then it no longer matters to people. Hey, good morning. You're on.
Yay.
Hello. Hello. Oh, wait.
Come in, over. Come in.
Okay, she's gone. Sorry. I thought there was.
Do you remember that connecting sound?
Back
in the day.
I thought it was Miss France, but she's too busy. She's too busy. Yeah, I mean, look, the point is, we used to also, I don't know if they're still doing this, but you remember like the cleverest students in South Africa who got the highest marks every year for matric? They'd be on the front page of the newspaper and we'd all go, oh my God, that kid is so clever. They did like 12 subjects in matric and they got 100% for all of them. Now we don't do that anymore. Now it's like, no, we don't celebrate excellence anywhere because everything is being watered down so that everyone can have some accessibility. And this will bring us to SVB, which we'll talk about in a minute or two. But before we get to that, Lebang wants to bring up something really important about epilepsy. And it's something I don't know a whole lot about. Why is this on your mind at the moment?
That is part of the reason why I want to bring it up, because a lot of people don't know enough about epilepsy. And this past weekend, one of our industry peers, Costa Titch, actually lost his life due to epilepsy. He was performing at Ultra. Right on stage, he had an epileptic fit. And very shortly after that, he was confirmed dead. So I actually grew up with a cousin who suffered from epilepsy, and if I didn't, I wouldn't have known anything about it. And it just kind of, made me think about childhood and being exposed to somebody who actually suffers from this condition, and how people know very little about it and therefore don't know how to react to the situation when somebody is having an epileptic fit. So on one end, obviously rest in peace to Costa Titch. He was very, very young. He was only 27. And the fact that he lost his life in that way so publicly, where his videos are being spread all over social media, it's just becoming a norm now that everybody's going to know how you die, especially if you're a celebrity. But the information side of it, if more people knew how to react and if more people had experience, or even just like the entry level knowledge of what to do when a person has an epileptic fit, then things could be very different. So without
Hang
sounding
on.
too,
What
yeah.
actually what happened with this and you interviewed him. He was in the studio with you and AKA, right? The last time you had
Yeah.
AKA in.
No, they were they did an album together, in fact. So I interviewed both of them at the same time. So it's just like back to back. You know, we just buried AKA a month ago. Now, you know, we have to bury Costa. It's very, very, very upsetting and very messy. But yeah, he was just performing, Gareth. He's been a performer his whole life. He started off as a dancer and then he became an artist. And I think that the lights at Ultra are different to most stage lights. Like Ultra is very like doom, doom, doom in your face. These are lights. And I mean, if he's been performing his whole life, you know, one would assume that he's used to the lights and he's used to the stage, of which he was. But my thinking is that the level at which Ultra puts on a full show and how hectic those strobe lights can be must have affected him. I mean, everyone has their own assumptions about what it was. Could it be drug related, this or this or that? But again, having grown up in a household with somebody who has epilepsy, it's almost like oh, okay, this is what actually happened. It's very clear that he was just kind of shutting down. His nervous system was just not responding anymore. So it was very sucky. It was very sucky.
All right. I mean, this is an interesting comment by Congo Chris. He says, I went to Ultra in Cape Town, and I must say the lighting rig was visually overstimulating. So if you have epilepsy, then obviously these lights can have a tremendous effect on bringing on a seizure, right?
Sure.
And
So,
they reckon maybe that's what happened?
yeah, no, that's what happened. You know, they've confirmed that he did have an epileptic fit, which was the cause of his death, because again of this reaction to the lights. And your body just kind of goes into a state of shock. You just like sit there and like your body's literally just like you're in a fit, so you're not consciously there. Your body's just like literally shaking. I remember sleeping in a bunk bed with my late cousin, who was sleeping at the top and I was sleeping at the bottom. And in the middle of the night, I just felt the bed shaking like, grrr. I was like, what is happening? I was like 4 years old. And then when I checked on him, he's literally sitting there and his body's just shaking and he's just in the state of like, you know, not being there. And I screamed, you know, and my mom always taught me that, look, if your cousin's having a fit, take a shoe and just like hit him under his foot. And that was just now a thing that I had to do. And every time I saw my cousin was about to have this fit, I would have to take a shoe and just start like slapping the crap out of his feet just so that he can get out of that. And I'm glad that in a way I know that, because it helped him. I mean, may his soul rest his peace. He also passed on to epilepsy, but I'm glad that I had access to that information, because every time now I'm in that situation, and you'd be surprised, I've been in that situation twice outside of a family member where someone around me is having a fit. I'm now equipped with just the entry level of what to do, because most people run. Most people don't know what to do. They freak out. I mean, in Costa's case, from what I understand, the bouncers were just kind of like shaking him and trying to wake him up. They didn't know what to do. And it's unfortunate, but I just think, you know, access to kind of this information will just help certain situations, even if you're not like medically equipped, but just knowing the little bit, you know, can change someone's life.
Well, okay, so our bot says people with certain conditions should also let the people around them know about it. A guy had an epileptic fit next to me, but at least I knew what to do. The other 29 people with me didn't. So you say like slap the feet, but I mean, I've never heard of that before. Is that what you do?
That's what I did with my cousin his whole life. I ended up doing it with a complete stranger in Newtown. I did it with an extra family member, my boyfriend's cousin as well. Like if somebody falls and they're having an epileptic fit, grab a shoe and just start hitting them underneath their foot. That's just sort of the quickest way to get them out of that condition. I mean, it works sometimes, it doesn't, but for the most part, it just speeds up the fit.
Jeez. All right. Well, I wouldn't know what to do. I would call you.
Look, don't call me, Gareth. Just take my advice. You know, hit them with a shoe. Make sure that they're not facing up, because then they struggle to breathe. Like Ryan is saying in the comments, lay them on their side. You may never need to use this information, but you'll never know if somebody around you is having a fit or not. So yeah, this weekend was kind of like, you know, like, oh man. And again, when you think of epilepsy, it's common, but it's not, right? And people that have epilepsy aren't walking around saying, I've got epilepsy, you know, I might need this. They just kind of continue with life. So if ever this happens, if you're seeing somebody in public struggling, try and help them out. Most people won't know what to do. Most people will run. So yeah.
I'm still calling you.
Gareth.
I don't know. I don't know anything about this. I mean, it might be worth actually getting a doctor on to talk about this, because
100%.
epilepsy is a fairly common condition. And I just think it's tremendously sad that this guy died while he was at a live event. I mean, it must have been devastating for his family. We spoke about it briefly yesterday, and you know, these things are just really, really awful when they take place. But I don't know how much there is that you could do. And yes, your people in the comments are saying, well, light that stimulates, that brings on these epileptic fits. People are talking about the advice that they know, that people must lie on their side, like you've said. I'm not sure, but I've never actually seen anyone having an epileptic fit, and I don't know what I would do. So I'm glad
it's
you brought it up.
Scary. It's very scary, Gareth, because again, like, you're just unequipped and you're not sure what's happening. And it confuses you as the person watching, because your first thought is, oh crap, is this person dying? What's happening right in front of me? This person's literally just like shaking. Their body is shaking uncontrollably. Their eyes are just rolled back to their heads. It's so scary.
In the old days, would they have thought these people were possessed by demons? They would have, right?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And also, it's not something that
would have been like, the demons have him.
Satanism.
Definitely.
Literally, it's so scary. So just, try to help if you can, is the point. If you can't, find somebody who can. But it's very sad that we've lost Costa in this way. His career was booming. He was doing so well, and he was so young, 27 years old. And again, this video of him having this fit is making the rounds. Everybody can see what happened, and that just, it sucks so bad.
Have they put that on the internet as well? Because they did that with AKA shooting. I don't know who these people are who are standing around filming this stuff instead of helping.
Yeah, look, these are people that were in the crowd, right? These are audience members that paid to go and watch these artists performing, and they had their phones out recording everything. I don't think many of them intended to record the death of Costa Titch. They were obviously just recording the show, and they didn't stop recording when that happened. The show had to go on. I know that some of the artists refused to actually perform after that, but some of them just did. The show had to go on. It was just kind of sad how that whole thing went down. But the whole energy at Ultra just changed. It was like something in the air, like it was over, essentially. From my friends that were there were just like, after the Costa thing, everybody just, left.
All right. Well, there's some useful info from Lebang, and I think it's worth thinking about. We've got Jonti Searll joining us in a short while. I just want to quickly go to this SVB story, because it's been in the news. It's probably one of the biggest issues in the financial world at the moment, and for good reason. There are lots of people who've lost lots of money by investing in the Silicon Valley Bank, and it has fallen apart. The number of withdrawals exceeded the amount of money in the bank, and they collapsed. This has happened before, but apparently, instead of paying attention to compliance and following the rules and making sure that the bank was liquid, apparently this place was running on a totally different set of values. So look at this quickly. Here's an interesting headline. Collapsed lender Silicon Valley Bank operated without a chief risk officer for 9 months, while the operation's UK-based CRO is accused of prioritizing diversity initiatives. Silicon Valley Bank had no head of risk for 9 months, as the woke boss for Europe, Middle East, and Africa was busy organizing a month-long pride campaign and Lesbian Visibility Day. So let's just remember, this is a bank, but they were so busy doing a pride campaign and Lesbian Visibility Day that the person who was in charge of risk didn't have their priorities right. And then if you look at, forget about that headline for a second, if you think maybe it's biased news or it's fake news or whatever, here's what SVB says about themselves. All right. This is their values statement. So this is a bank, by the way. This is not
Innovation
an NGO.
Through inclusion.
All right, but here it is. Here are their core values. Are you ready? We start with empathy for others. I'm going to remind you again at this point, this is a bank we're talking about. If you're going to a bank for empathy, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Any bank. I mean, Lebang, if you don't pay your interest on your bank account, or if you don't pay your mortgage, or if there's a debit order that comes off and there's no money in your account, how much empathy does your bank give you?
Sure. I mean, if I'm going there
Zero.
for empathy,
Zero.
sign me
Okay.
up to SVB.
All right. Then they say we speak and act with integrity. Good, but clearly not
Sure.
enough that when people come to the ATM for their money, you don't have any in there. That's not integrity. We embrace a diverse, okay, this is the best part. I mean, we embrace diverse perspective. What, like not having money that we've deposited into your account available to us when we want to take it out again? Is that the diverse perspective that you're talking about? You have a different, 2 + 2 isn't 4. Your diverse perspective is that 2 + 2 is 8. Figure that out for me. We take responsibility. They say, no, you don't. Evidently, you do not take responsibility. We keep learning and improving. Well, that's gone, I'm afraid. This is from their own, their brochure, their prospectus. Okay, here are their facts. No, again,
Gareth,
this is a
you are
bank that has
ripping them.
failed. No, they deserve this. Here's what they call diversity at SVB. Okay, 60% of the total workforce is diverse. Now, I don't know what that means. You can't. One person isn't diverse. What does that mean? Does that mean that 67% of the people at SVB are what, orange? Are they all colors of the rainbow? Are some of them tall and some of them short? Like, explain yourself. 50% of senior leaders are diverse. 69% of board members are diverse. And 20% of the employees are, what does it say here? Members of
the DEI Employee
Advocacy.
Advocacy Network.
Right.
Does
That's
the D in DEI stand for diversity? I'm sure.
Diversity. What is E again? Is something else, and inclusion is the I.
Empowerment.
Okay, so this is what they say about their bank. This is a bank. This is a place that's, banking is hundreds of years old. This was developed, I mean, back in the ancient era, we had banking. And these were never things that made a bank great or not great. They were completely unimportant to banks. But this place has failed horribly. I want to show you who their investment committee is. All right, here's their investment committee. And this person says, quite rightly on Twitter, why is all the focus on SVB's failure of losing all their investments and not on the accomplishment of having an all-female investment committee in the banking industry? Pay attention to what really matters. Well, there are 4 women there. They count as diverse, apparently.
These are 4 white women. This is not diversity.
In fact, 2 of them, listen to this. This is how diverse they're. Exactly. This is how diverse they're, because diverse doesn't mean anything.
One is named Karen.
No, but wait. Here's the best part. The one is called Bryn Talkington, and the other one is called Jenny Harrington.
And the other is called Karen Firestone. This all sounds like the same person, just diluted. Aye.
So this is the investment committee, and ladies and gentlemen, this is what left-wing diversity. What is the E for again? What is E and DEI?
DEI, like diversity, evolution.
I don't know.
Look, Gareth.
So fucking stupid. I've got to say that this is probably why everybody was so distracted by this shit that they forgot that their job as a bank was to look after people's money. That's what they're there to do.
Yeah. I think they were trying to do this thing where, it's almost, as if this is the era. Equity.
E is for equity.
Yeah. So it's almost like this is the era to raise your voice. If you've ever had an issue with something, if you've ever felt like you're in the minority or like the world isn't giving you enough attention, this is your time. If you have an alphabet that is between the L and the plus, it's your opportunity to speak. It's almost as though they use that as their whole ethos and whole company culture. Like, this is all we're going to focus on, so that on the outside, we look like everybody has a place here and everybody fits in. We're not L, we're not plus, we're not GTQ, we're not men, woman, female, his, her. Everybody is welcome here. That's what they're selling. Whereas they're forgetting that they are a bank. At their very core, keep our money safe, comrade. That is all we are requesting of you. Everything else is fluff. It really almost feels like that bank was made by like woke kids.
Mhm.
It almost seems like somebody's
It was.
child was walking in the corridor and was like, Dad, Mom, I've got an idea. The kids like this, that. And then they use that to, I don't know, it just feels very Hollywoody and America-y. It's very like, ugh, you know? I wouldn't bank with them
let
is the
me
point.
I completely echo what Lebang is saying here. I think that these people have their priorities in exactly the wrong order. And it's no wonder that they failed, and good that they failed. I'm sorry for everybody who's lost their money in this bank. It's a totally different situation to the other acronym VBS. You know, this is SVB. Here in South Africa, VBS stole people's money, but in a much more old school way. They just stole the money. So you know what? You want to go along with this diversity, equity, inclusion crap, and it becomes your mantra, and you let left-wing politicians force you to do this in your private company. Good luck to you. You'll be the next one. I look forward to seeing more and more companies fail based on this dumb mantra, DEI. Do me a favor.
If this DEI thing is all that you do and it's what you build on, then you are more than likely bound to fail. If it is merely a portion of what you do, and if it is something that you truly believe in and you're doing it organically, but you're still doing your job, so you're doing your core thing, but on top of that, you're saying, hey man, this is who we are, this is what we believe in, then I can support that. But if you're just kind of doing this for the audience, dog, peace.
They did. Of course, they're doing it for the audience, the same way the Oscars are and Miss France is. It's all related. Anyway, time for us to move on. It's all political, and the politicians have taken over everywhere, and in the places that they couldn't take over before, they're now starting to tell us how to govern these places, like private companies. And companies are going along with it because they've got stupid people in HR who put these things into play. Sorry, that's the way it works, and they're morons, and they deserve to fail. And I can't wait to see more of it happen. Anyway, so let's move on to something completely different and to someone who we haven't spoken to in a long time. His name is Jonti Searll. He has been working in the field of conscious sexuality for over 20 years, Lebang. He's created healing processes, workshops, and material that has helped many people to create fulfilling experiences in relationships. Of course, he also presented Sex Talk every Friday on Cliff Central for the first few years. Here he is. He's back. Jonti Searll. Hello, Jonti.
Morning, Jonti.
Good morning, Gareth. How are you? How's everybody?
Good. We're very good. Lebang and I were just talking about how much we miss Sex Talk.
Thank you. I miss it too.
Where are you? You sitting?
Things there.
Are you sitting in your garden? Because it looks very peaceful there where you are.
I'm looking over Camps Bay Beach.
Oh, must be so nice.
Good.
Yeah,
this is very good.
I'm teaching workshops in Cape Town this week.
A bit of a sex on the beach there.
Tell us about these workshops, Jonti. It sounds interesting.
Yeah, so they're about healing, they're about exploring the inner erotic mind, some sexual skills in them, some massage, a whole range of experiences to improve intimacy and sex and pleasure and so much of our inner journey.
Sounds bloody marvelous. All right, and nice to do that in Camps Bay. I mean, this is the perfect setting for people to get sexy, right?
It is. But, you know, sensuality is everywhere. And I realized this the other day. I went for a really cold water swim. And normally we think of sexuality as this kind of warm and fuzzy and wonderful and fireplace and all of that. But even if you're out walking in the wind and the rain, that's sensual and it makes you feel alive and vital. So it's like, you know, the whole expression of being alive is about our sensuality.
Well, I mean, you've spoken a lot about sex on Cliff Central, and you had your own show, and it was really fascinating to hear all the different perspectives and how much, you know, our understanding of sexuality has changed. What's new since we last had you on? I mean, there's always new stuff being discovered, there are new perspectives being brought in. There are people who are figuring out new ways of expressing themselves sexually and otherwise. What's news from the point of view of Jonti Searll? What is the cutting edge of all of this stuff right now?
Well, firstly, I went to teach in Ireland last year and I fell in love. That was like a
Ooh.
really new big thing for me because it's been a long time. So that was a really big thing for me. And there's some very interesting things. It's about so much of putting sexuality in the context of our lives. And that's so important that it's not separate from everything else that we do. It's not something that we kind of switch on, we use it, we switch it off again. We're sexual beings all the time. And you know what you guys were talking about before, the whole work story, that's kind of, it switches on and it switches off instead of it being part of the fullness of who we are, which becomes the authenticity of who we are, not just a label that we take on for a few moments. And a big part of our sexuality is dropping a lot of the labels, because the labels become the limitation instead of opening to the freedom.
All right, don't just breeze past this whole thing of you falling in love. Tell us a little bit about this. So you went off to Ireland, and you were there to give some courses. And who's this person that you met? And tell us what's happened.
She walked into the room. I was giving it was the first free talk. And I took one look at her, and it was something inside of me just went, oh, fuck. And it was just one of those moments of, wow.
So something straight out of the movies.
Yeah, it really was. It kind of felt like that.
This person, is she going to be moving to South Africa? Are you thinking of going to Ireland? Are you doing the long distance thing? Like, what's your...
Well, we've spent quite a lot of time. We've spent some time together. She was here for 5 months. I can't see myself doing the weather in Ireland, I must be honest. For like 2 or 3 weeks, it's fine. But after that, I want sunshine. We're talking about it. How do we work it out? How do we bring two lives together? How do we integrate this?
Jonti, I'm sure you see like a lot of couples. Sorry, Gareth. Like, I can just imagine how many couples come to you for advice and for counsel, because you know, a lot of couples get to that place in their relationship where maybe the sex gets a bit stale, and they're told spice it up in inverted commas. What's like the common problem that that you've seen when couples approach you? What's the one thing that you can say most couples have experienced for them to sort of get to that that wall? And most importantly, what's your advice to them? We're taking notes.
So they actually don't know how to communicate about what they want.
Okay.
And that's their biggest thing, that they have desires. Often it's not the same desire. You want one thing, I want something else. That doesn't mean that that's a problem, but we don't know how to communicate our desires, and we don't know how to have these honest and authentic conversations because there's a lot of fear around that. What does it mean? So if I express this, it brings up a fear. What does the fear mean? And when we kind of can get beyond that fear to say, let's explore this. Don't make a decision to do this or not do it. Don't make a decision to stay together or to separate. Let's explore something. And if we can start that exploration, that's where so much starts to change. So much of it comes down to communication. And underneath that is actually knowing ourselves, knowing who we are and what it is that we want.
When you talk about communication and sex, you're not just talking about during sex. So you're not saying like, faster, or, you know, a little bit more to the left, or any of that stuff. You're saying communication generally, right? Because you have to have an open line of communication with the person you're having sex with, so that the sex is wonderful and pleasant and beautiful for both of you, and so that you are involved in a conversation, physical and emotional and mental.
Yeah. So think about what you might want from a sexual experience. And if, you know, Gareth, if I asked you, and Lebang, if I asked you, it would be different, and it's different every day. So what is it that we want from a sexual experience today? Do we want to feel more intimate? Do we want to have a mind-blowing cosmic orgasm? Do we want it to be comforting and soothing and loving and tender? Do we want it to be exploratory? So fulfillment is quite a wide range of things, and most people put it into one little kind of 10-15 second orgasm kind of squirt in the dark thing, which often is not very fulfilling. So when we want more, we have to start looking at, well, what does that really mean? What is the more? And to be able to communicate that.
All right, so I'm going to open this up to questions from the audience. You're more than welcome to send us a message in the comments section. We will relay that to Jonti. Or if you'd like to call us, maybe you want to talk to Jonti yourself, and you got follow-up questions, or you want to explain something to him that you can't put into words, in written words, then do that. You can get hold of us 0832955769. Tell us what's on your mind, and we'll put you on to Jonti. He wants to hear from you. He wants to solve your problems. This is what he does. How are the classes and the yoni massages going?
Beautiful, very exciting. There's always new things to explore, and we learn more about the body all the time. There's new things coming out about the nerve structure inside the yoni, for example. There's new things coming out about male sexuality. There's a really interesting new idea that's taken quite big root, which is we think that we need to be aroused to have sex. Like we wait for that arousal, or we wait for someone to turn us on. And actually, if you turn that around and you think, what would I like to feel? What would I like to share with someone? You don't need to be aroused to have sex.
Okay, what do we need to be?
We just need to have an intention to feel something. And we can go into an experience and see what arises and what develops. Because such a big thing with couples is the gap between arousal states. Like, I'm really turned on, you're not. What do we do with that? And when we can just start exploring something, start touching, start kissing, and something starts to grow within us, and that can really change things. Because so often people say, oh, I'm not turned on, or I'm tired, or, we give so many reasons why not to have sex.
Sure.
Instead of, is there a different way in, rather than just waiting to get turned on?
Yeah.
Well, Carl has this comment. Hold on, Lebang, this is very important. Carl says, Jonti, you need to figure this new girlfriend situation out before the World Cup, because Ireland and the Bucks could be up against each other while you two are up against each other. You need to figure this out. So that's very good advice from Carl. You need to make a plan, Jonti. ASAP. All right?
Jonti,
that is a good one, Carl.
Earlier on, you said that being sexual is not something you switch on and off. Like, you can live it and be it and breathe it. Like, you can walk through the office and be sexual. I'm kind of struggling with that concept. Can you sort of unpack it for me in a way that I can understand? Because I do believe you, and I do believe that sexuality is part of our energy and our flows and our chakras and all of that stuff. But how do I walk into the office and be fully confidently a sexual being without being, aggressively sexy and inappropriately sexual?
Yeah. So our sexuality isn't only our genitals, and it's not only about sex with someone else. It's about our vitality and our creativity and our life force and our confidence and our spark and our sense of humor.
Sure.
So it's about being fully in your body, and your genitals are a part of that. So can we make that?
I hate to interrupt this. Yeah, good morning. You got a question for Jonti? Let's go to the calls. We can come back to this in a second.
I do have a question for you.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm 71 years old. I don't have a partner. How the hell can I have a nice sexual engagement with anybody? Does he have a solution for that?
71 years old. Jonti, help.
This question wasn't for you.
Just the look on your face alone.
First of all, have you got one of those mini vacuum cleaners you can just get the dust off of there for? Because that might be a good starting point.
Come on, Gareth. No.
Probably first the feather duster and then the vacuum.
All right, so go on. Give this poor lady some advice, Jonti. Let's help her out.
So why is 71 a limitation? It's not. It's kind of firstly a number, and you don't have to stop having sex at any age in life. There's such a huge increase in older people having sex. We've had older people on workshops, couples in their late 70s, who are having the most amazing sexual experiences. So much of that's a
partner.
But listen, Jonti, she doesn't have a fucking partner, Jonti. Where does she start?
Okay, well,
exactly. There's no fucking going on here because there's no partner. You have a
Well, maybe there's a whole new venture for all of us in senior swinging clubs. I mean, I don't mean to be glib here, but maybe there's a whole thing there. Finding a partner it's not so hard, because I'm going to tell you why. On a lot of the dating and sexual sites, there are older people looking to have sex, and there are younger people looking to have sex with older people. So you have to put it out there. You have to start looking. There is somebody, like there's a socket for every plug. I'm trying to be kind of tactful and polite here.
Tell me something. Wouldn't it have to be hard to have sex?
Why
You
should
said
it
it's
be
not
hard
hard.
to have
Wouldn't it
sex?
have to be hard?
All right, okay. She's taking the piss. All right, very good. Well, I mean, listen, what you're saying is horrific, but it's true. There are lots of very old people on these dating apps, and they also need sex and love.
Yeah, it doesn't. Why should it stop? We're sexual and sensual beings from the moment we're born till the moment we die. So much of that is a belief. So much of that is the social conditioning, because the media gives us this thing about you have to be beautiful for this to happen, and everybody in porn is beautiful and amazing, instead of, no, that's not the real stuff. It's real people having amazing sex lifelong.
Sure, teach us.
Do you know, Jonti, do you know any people in their 90s who are still having regular sex?
Not personally, but I'm sure that's come up somewhere along the line.
All right. Well, on that note, Carl says he's lost his breakfast. But let's
Carl, you
turn
need
our
to be
attention-
tougher than that to stay on Cliff Central. Come on.
Jonti, would you advise for people like our caller who are on their own, would you advise for them to have sex toys, or to pay for sex, or to seek out a partner, or to just give up completely? What would you say?
Well, certainly don't give up. Secondly, seek out a partner, and then explore yourself. Sex toys can be fabulous for that. There's no question. And that can be really exciting for someone who's maybe never explored that before.
And I think most people generally, like, sex toys are always like positioned as this, don't go down there. If you use sex toys, it means you can't find the human whatnot. I don't think it's about that. It's almost like an added layer to discovering who you are as a sexual being. The toy isn't replacing a person. It's just a tool to figure yourself out and find out what it is that you like, and therefore it'll be easier for you to then communicate to the said person, if and when you find them, that, hey, this is in fact what I like.
Yeah. And if you look at some of the toys, I mean, no human being can do what some of these things are designed to do. So they can give some amazing pleasure, because that's what they're designed for. I mean, even you explore some of the bondage things and you see these machines, and, in some of that, there's these things called a fucking machine. And like no single human being with a penis could ever come close to doing what these things do.
Yep.
Can't hear you over the sound of the machine turned on in the studio.
You need more like a jackhammer sound.
No, what's that?
Like a jackhammer sound.
Yeah. All right, so Jonti, I mean, when you talk to couples, like Lebang was saying earlier, she asked, what is the most persistent problem that these people have? But there are people who also have a major mental or psychological hang-ups with regard to sex. And I mean, obviously, they go and see therapists and psychologists, and maybe they are, severely depressed. There are all kinds of very ordinary reasons why people may be turned off to sex. There are also these very rare people who are completely asexual, right? Have you ever encountered any of them?
Yeah, absolutely. And if that's their choice and that's their natural expression, that's fine. The important thing with that is to make it that it's an authentic expression, not that I'm choosing not to have sex because I have so many issues or pains or hurts that I haven't resolved. And those are quite different things.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because a lot of people, obviously, they're not willing to accept that. They've just got like traumas, or they're just not willing to explore.
That's
and
it.
therefore, I'm asexual. Sorry, not willing to go into that side of life. Whereas like being a sexual person, I think everybody, you have it. It's in you. You're a human. But I see a nice question here from the comments, Gareth. I think the question was from Ancient Ether. How do you define sex addiction? Now, this one's interesting because there's a lot of celebrities that have publicly been shamed for being sexual addicts and for being, addicted to certain things and therefore messing up their marriages and their lives, blah, blah, blah. Jonti, is there such a thing as too much sex?
Well, not really. At some point, you need a rest because there's times where our bodies and our genitals need some regeneration time and some downtime and some resensitizing time. But like with any addiction, you have to look at what's underneath it. So the interesting thing is that there is a school of thought saying that sex addiction actually doesn't exist, that it's a label that's kind of been put out there, which makes a lot of what people do okay, and it actually might not be real. That's one level of it. With any addiction, you have to look at what's underneath the addiction, and it's generally the feeling. So an addiction is generally a response to some kind of pain, because that's how we cope with the pain.
Sure.
So if we start looking at what's underneath that, what's lacking, or what is it that we're trying to cover up, or what is it that we're seeking, that's where it starts to become a different kind of exploration.
All right, well, let's turn our attention, to some of the newfangled stuff that's going on. Because, there are a lot of people who are claiming now that they are only the sapiosexuals, people who are attracted to intelligence. There are pansexuals. I still have someone has to explain to me the difference between a pansexual and, for example, a bisexual. Right? You would be the right person to ask these questions to, Jonti. How do you explain these new terms which are cropping up that people are using to label themselves? They're choosing them as parts of their identity.
I think some of them are really valid simply because they become an expression of who we are and what really does turn us on. So for some people, intelligent conversation is a turn on, it is arousing. But look at what about it turns us on, because having a really wonderful, stimulating conversation makes us feel alive and it makes us feel vital, and we express that sexually. Other things in our life can do the same thing. I think there's also a point where the limitations or where the labels become the limitation simply because we say, well, this is the only path of arousal, and then we tend to cut other things out. So like if you look at the label bisexual, for example, there's an enormous judgment of bisexual people by some of the sexual community because it says, well, you don't actually know what you are. But what about a fluidity that says, in this moment, this turns me on? I've been working with quite a few people who have actually ended up in same-sex relationships who never considered themselves to be gay, of both genders, but they fell in love with a person, with a soul, not with genitals.
I know a couple of girls who also fell in love. They were never into girls before, but when they met each other, they fell in love with each other, which is precisely to your point. But what is a pansexual? So,
as far as I am aware, a pansexual is simply somebody who is turned on by pretty much everything. And that's absolutely fabulous. There's no reason not to be.
It can be a little bit distracting at the office, though, Jonti. I mean,
Yeah, it is, but you're not going to be attracted to everybody. That's the thing. Walk through the Cliff Central studio. There's people there who you might be attracted to, people you won't be. Walk through.
But I mean, what I'm saying is, in any office place, it's not appropriate for you to be sexually turned on around co-workers. Can you imagine in an auditing firm, everybody's crunching numbers, And there's someone who's pansexual walking around, and they're super turned on by all these number crunching auditors. I mean, it's frightening beyond belief.
This is sounding like greed and gluttony. People just want to fuck everything. Y'all just greedy.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane.
Yes, all just greedy.
Yeah, but
exactly.
Maybe that's a part of our true nature. Maybe there's a part of us that says, I do just want to fuck everybody. And we've become so conditioned to kind of suppress that. But there's
this is unbelievable. This is fantastic. This is fantastic. I love it. Oh, I love it.
There's a very big difference between being aroused and acting out on that arousal.
Okay.
That I can look at somebody and I can think, wow, they are really attractive, or they really turn me on. And that's totally an inner state. And that's my inner world. That doesn't mean I have to do anything about that. That doesn't mean I have to tell you I'm attracted to you. Doesn't mean I have to tell you that I want to have sex with you. It simply is, that's my inner state. Because if we look around and if we become more sensual and more sexual, more people become more attractive, because we look at things and we find more beauty in things. We find more, like in the curve of a face, or in a movement, or you walk past somebody in a mall and there's this amazing fragrance that they're wearing, and something inside of us just goes, we don't have to do anything with that. That's the difference.
Yeah. I hear that, and I think, Jonti, sounds great on paper, but I don't trust human beings with the ability to have self-control and to keep that to themselves and leave it in the inner sphere. Human beings will almost always act on it and almost then feel like they deserve it and it's theirs, and they'll do anything to go for it. I mean, in this context of office talk and whatever, I completely get it. But on the opposite spectrum, we have so many people who are using sex and the hunger for it, and they take it and they rape women and they rape young girls and young kids because they just want it. They don't have that ability to just self-control and contain the things that they see that they are aroused by and attracted to. So on one end, I hear you, and I think definitely that should be the case. But we live in a society where people are just taking and forcing. So how do we find that balance then? Because it's nice that that sex is a beautiful thing, and it was intended for us to, see the beauty in, and this is, all that stuff. But the truth is, this is our reality. It can get very dark and dangerous if misused.
Yeah, absolutely it can. And that's where the inner journey, the journey to conscious sexuality, the journey of tantric sexuality, is exploring our own selves, to know our own selves. And to know then, how do we express that in a way that's authentic and appropriate? And how do we express that in a way that's respectful and honoring? And that comes from honoring me. Because if I honor me, then I'm not going to do that in a way that's going to take away from you.
Sure.
So when somebody's doing that, they're not honoring themselves.
There's a whole category of inappropriate and frankly criminal behavior, which, a whole lot of people just have no self-control in any sphere of their lives. And sex is just a part of that, where they act it out. Jonti, I'm curious also, these days it's become much more difficult for people to flirt with each other, because there are rules in, workplaces, even socially. If you make an inappropriate move as a man or a woman, frankly, sometimes you can get into a huge amount of trouble. And I think people have started to misinterpret signals, and it's mostly because we live on screens. And a lot of people are used to communicating, especially young people, on screen. So they don't actually know how to have conversation, how to flirt, how to tease and play with each other and kind of warm up to a relationship or an encounter of some kind. And that's obviously a big problem.
Yeah, we've taken some things way too far, in the name of political correctness. We've just gone way, way overboard. And the whole work story is a part of that. When people want to reissue Roald Dahl books with certain words taken out of them, it's like a symptom of the society that's walking on eggshells instead of having authentic interactions with people.
Sure.
And being able to understand something in the context that it is, And I'm not saying that everything is okay and it's okay to say everything, but we've gone to a place where we don't know how to have conversations, where we don't know how to flirt. And that's such a good example, because it's such a beautiful expression of men and women, where there's so much in it that can be fun, that can be, somebody, after a few moments of that kind of conversation with someone, you feel alive and you feel excited and you're creative and it wakes something up within you. That doesn't mean you want to have sex with that person, but we've immediately kind of taken it from A to Q without understanding anything in
plus,
between.
Q plus.
Yeah, and we've just put it in this context of that we've lost so much of what it is in genuine human interaction, that it's easy to have sex. It's not easy to have relationships and be intimate today. And that's what technology has done. It's taken us away from that human connection.
Well, just judging by the comments and the calls today, we need to get you on again very, very soon. But it's great to catch up with you, Jonti, and I hope you'll enjoy your sex classes and outdoor sex and whatever else you're up to there in Camps Bay. And I hope the neighbors don't complain,
Me too. But if I have a problem, I'll say, Gareth said it was okay for us to do this on the beach.
Don't you dare involve me. I don't want to be involved in whatever you've got going on. All right. Thank you. There's Jonti. All right. Cool. All right, there's Jonti Searll, everybody.
Having a bit of sex on the beach. That's an interesting take, though, for real. Like, it's it's very, some of the things are a bit difficult to comprehend, but I mean, if he's made this his whole life's work, then there's something to be said about
amazing.
that.
And he's very serious about it. I mean, he's got a sense of humor, but Jonti takes sex way more seriously than anyone I've ever met. I love this. I don't know if it's a real name, but Lawrence Rogheimer says, thanks, Jonti, with an eggplant, and has been making rude comments basically the whole way through, which I love. All right.
Pretty much.
So
that's your vibe.
Special thank you to our 71-year-old woman who called in and asked about sex. You've
very
got to
brave
feel
of you.
very brave, and we appreciate the call. In fact, I want you to call again anytime you like, because calls like that make my day. It's my favorite kind of call to take. So, before we say goodbye, coming up in the next hour, they're celebrating 40 years of Hunt Lascaris, which is 4 amazing decades of growing brands, growing talent, and winning. And this agency is just legendary. People throw that word around a little bit too much for my liking these days. But the 2 founders of TBWA Hunt Lascaris, John Hunt and Reg Lascaris, sat down and spoke to me just a short while ago and reminisced a little bit about how and where it all began all those years ago. From the boot of a car to the first world-class advertising agency out of Africa. And they're still blazing an incredible path into the future. If you missed this discussion, you can find it on our app or on the YouTube channel under Gareth's Guests, but we encourage you and invite you to listen to it right now. 40 years of Hunt Lascaris, Reg and John next. You got to hear from these 2 guys how it all began. It's a really, really cool story. We've got a lot of other really great interviews coming up in the next couple of weeks, so stick around for all of those and more. And we will see you tomorrow at 6 a.m.
Bye.